and welcome to Midday Report, coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Sally Jastrzębska. The 62nd Munich Security Conference is now underway in Germany and runs through Sunday. Attending the talks, among others, are Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk and Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski, along with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Organizers say their goal is to rebuild trust in transatlantic relations. Marcin Zaborowski is on site and has this report.
Today, the Munich Security Conference is already underway. We have a day with a very packed agenda. We have the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz speaking very soon. We also have the French President Emmanuel Macron, the President of the EU Commission. There is a number of world leaders who will be appearing here. Over the next few days, also Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk will be speaking here, and Poland's Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski is making an appearance twice at the floor here at Munich Security Conference. However, really the expectation is about what will be happening tomorrow, when in the morning the US State Secretary Marco Rubio will be taking the stage. Why is it the case? Because last year, Vice President J.D. Vance delivered a very meaningful address, but very critical address. He was very critical of the Europeans, he lambasted the Europeans, and that set the tone for the relationship that followed for the rest of 2025. There is an expectation that Marco Rubio, a more moderate figure, will set more positive tone for this relationship in 2026. Whether this is going to happen, we will see very soon. It's Marcin Zaborowski from Munich.
During the opening presser at the Munich Security Conference, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte praised Europe for taking a leadership role in NATO and Germany for stepping up its arms production. He also expressed the alliance's unwavering support for Ukraine.
Europe taking more of a leadership role within NATO. Europe also taking more care of its own defense. And this is really a staggering change. And this will make NATO stronger. Because it means that a strong Europe in a strong NATO means that the transatlantic bond will be stronger than ever. Because we have dealt with that big irritant on the US side of Europe not doing the same as the Americans were doing. Germany is now spending in 2029 twice as much as in 2021. You will ramp up defense spending to over 150 billion euros. This is leading Europe in the right direction. Bavaria being, of course, one of the citadels of production in Europe. We have to continue the support for Ukraine and also widespread understanding that we still need to do more for Ukraine. But also an understanding on Ukraine that the Russians are reaping up staggering losses day in, day out. 35,000 dead in December, 30,000 dead in January. So where they want to perceive the Russians as a mighty bear, you could argue that they are moving through Ukraine at the stilted speed of a garden snail.
US Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned European leaders that the world is changing fast and that the old order is gone. America's top diplomat delivered the remarks while speaking to journalists ahead of the Munich Security Conference.
I think they want honesty. They want to know where we're going, where we'd like to go with them. So that's our hope. It's an important conference. My third time, twice as Secretary of State. We'll have a lot of members of Congress there, so as well. I'll see them tomorrow as well. So it's important, and I think it's at a defining moment. And I refer you back to even the speech or the statement I gave during my nomination hearing as Secretary of State. The world is changing very fast right in front of us. The old world is gone, frankly, the world I grew up in, and we live in a new era in geopolitics, and it's going to require all of us to sort of re-examine what that looks like and what our role is going to be. And we've had many of these conversations in private with many of our allies, and they are our allies. And we need to continue to have those conversations. And I think Saturday, hopefully, and the meetings we'll have there will move us in that direction.
Now for the latest from Ukraine. Russia launched a barrage of drones and ballistic missiles in an overnight attack into Friday, firing 219 drones and 24 ballistic missiles at Kyiv, Odessa and Dnipro. President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Telegram that the strikes resulted in deaths, injuries and serious damage to energy infrastructure.
Flames consume a warehouse in Odessa after a large-scale Russian attack raged across the southern city late on Thursday. Drone strikes killed one person and wounded 6 others and left 200 buildings without heating. In the eastern Donetsk region, 3 brothers were reported killed by Russian strikes, according to local media. Meanwhile, Ukrainian drones have hit a Russian oil refinery in a record-breaking long-distance strike, according to Ukrainian military sources. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces said UAVs hit the Rutte oil refinery in Russia's Komi region, around 1,750 kilometers from the Ukrainian-Russian border. As Ukraine's power and heat supplies continue to take a pounding, experts suggest that to maintain US President Donald Trump's interest in working for peace, Volodymyr Zelensky would be best served by holding a vote within the next few months.
Today we saw an interview by Simon Schuster with Zelensky for Atlantic, and Zelensky confirmed that he's not ruling out president elections in May, and together with referendum on one of the questions will be about giving up some territories. So he wants people of Ukraine to say their word in that.
Marta Shokolo, the editor-in-chief for BBC News Ukrainian, said the best opportunity for this was fast approaching.
It looks like the window of possibilities for any sort of resolution of the conflict, of the war, will be in spring. And if all sides fail to come to any agreement in that period, very short period of time, it looks like the war will go on for I don't know how long.
A successful vote and referendum could provide the basis for Donald Trump's team to push ahead with securing a peace deal. Experts say Trump may want to win to provide good news ahead of the US midterm elections later this year.
We still do not have firm answers from Russia regarding what has been proposed for next week. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said during his nightly address on Thursday, referring to a possible meeting. The Kremlin was later reported saying the talks would move to Geneva and are expected to take place on Tuesday and Wednesday. Kremlin aide Vladimir Medinsky is set to lead the Russian delegation.
Our negotiating team is working all the time. They're in touch with the American side. Ukraine is ready for meetings, but at this point, unfortunately, we still do not have firm answers from Russia regarding what has been proposed for next week. So far, we hear nothing more than manipulation around the Oreshnik. This is certainly not about peace.
US First Lady Melania Trump said on Thursday that she played a role in reuniting an unspecified number of Ukrainian and Russian children with their families. Ukraine's government says up to 20,000 children were taken to Russia after the February 2022 invasion. Close to 2,000 of them have since been returned.
Russia has systematically kidnapped Ukrainian children from the occupied parts of Ukraine. It's for this reason that the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Vladimir Putin and his Commissioner for Children's Rights, Maria Lvova-Belova, in March 2023. The plight of Ukrainian children has attracted the attention of US First Lady Melania Trump, who handed Vladimir Putin a letter during last summer's Alaska meeting between the presidents of the US and Russia, urging him to protect children. According to a White House statement, the First Lady facilitated several returns on different occasions, most recently on Thursday.
Today marks the third reunification since I have been working strategically with both nations. I have no doubt more progress will come.
The statement did not specify the exact number of children that Russia agreed to return to Ukraine.
Although all parties are cooperating and our communications remain robust, I urge Russia and Ukraine to intensify their efforts to ensure the safe return of every child to their families and guardians.
The Kyiv Independent published remarks that there are no credible reports or verified evidence suggesting Russian children have been abducted by Ukrainians during the war, and asked the White House for clarification. On the other hand, according to Ukrainian authorities, Russia has kidnapped 20,000 Ukrainian children since the start of the war.
And now on a domestic note, the yield on Poland's 10-year government bonds fell below the 5% mark on Friday. That is the lowest level recorded on the Polish debt market since early 2022. The drop signals rising demand for Polish government bonds and growing confidence in the country's economy.
In business, when you're doing good, people want to lend you money. The same is true for governments. That's why the yield on a Polish 10-year government bonds has dropped below the 5% mark for the first time in 4 years. In other words, investors want to park their cash in Polish treasuries. Case in point, the last bond sale has been oversubscribed twice.
It shows that actually the investors are somewhat greedy. They really want to hoard Polish treasuries. They see them as stable, reliable, valuable asset. And effect of this strong demand is yields going downwards.
This is due to Poland's excellent economic performance, with the country leaving other players in the region and the EU as a whole in the dust. And this really matters because it makes Poland stand out in the eyes of traders.
If you want to be exposed to Central and Eastern Europe as an investor, but you can choose, investing in a lower performing economy or better performing economy as Poland, then of course you might make the decision to readjust your portfolio. And quite possibly this is what we are observing right now.
This also means that investors are not worried about the country's fiscal woes, as long as high deficit goes hand in hand with a solid economic expansion. It's also worth noting that the yield on Polish 10-year treasuries has been falling at the fastest rate in Europe.
Perhaps it could go even lower in the coming months, especially if there is some final peace deal negotiated between Ukraine and Russia. But even if not, we can see that the markets are not really that worried about those geopolitical risks.
For countries in the region without the euro, only the Czech Republic enjoys lower yields than Poland. However, the figure has been rising and currently hovers at around 4.3%.
The Polish Foreign Ministry has issued a warning for people planning to visit Cuba. Due to fuel and power shortages, Polish nationals have been advised against non-essential travel to the Caribbean island. Poland's Foreign Ministry issued a statement on Thursday saying that restrictions on access to fuel and long blackouts may cause significant difficulties for visitors. Moreover, Polish authorities say that travelers to Cuba may face difficulties in accessing water, transport, healthcare and communication services. The deepening crisis on the island is caused by the US oil blockade targeting Havana. The shortages of fuel, including jet fuel, have prompted several international airlines to halt flights to Cuba or reroute their planes. And with this, we conclude Midday Report. Thank you for watching and please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.